about row the boat, I'm going to jump on with row the boat. I'm going to play devil's advocate against Ohio State's prolific offense. I'm going to give them a pass for Minnesota and Oregon to a certain extent. C.J. Stroud had never thrown a ball in at the collegiate level. The Penn State game was less than scintillating. Of course, they scored a defensive touchdown. They kept bogging down in the red zone, but they were playing what I think was the most underachieving team in the nation. They played one of the 5 most talented defenses, and when they were on their game, one of the best defenses in the country in Penn State. So I get that. Nebraska was a 23-point effort. Of course, we know 27 against Michigan. They really kicked it into gear in looking at good teams, decent teams, Purdue and Michigan State. That's when they really put on the throttle and look like, okay, they're just going to take this all the way through to the end of the year. And then, of course, the Rose Bowl performance. But for as much talent and prolific status as this offense has, it's not automatic all the time.
What offense is? Like, I mean,
true.
LSU in 2019,
yeah, they would be about as close as we can get. Yeah.
You're playing another team, you're playing another defense. So it's like, you're not playing on junior varsity level every single week. So yeah, sometimes things are slow to start or don't get entirely started. And to start the season, like that's not even who your team is at that point. So, I mean, you are who you are, October on. You're not who you are in September. I mean, not even close. Look at Ohio State's defense last year, changed completely, and so did the personnel. So, it was a very good offense, the highest scoring offense in the nation, the most yards in the nation. So whether it was the best or one of the best, I mean, it did all of that while also sometimes not being the best. Nobody is the best all the time.
I mean, look at Alabama last year. And, they didn't win the national championship. They just came up just short, but they scored 31 and winning a 2-point game at Florida. That was in September. But a pair of games in November, they beat a hapless LSU team 20-14. And then they only beat Auburn 24-22. I mean, we're talking about 2 games in November, the back third of the season. So you can't, it isn't always on. And what you sit there and you look at your schedule and you know that you're not going to have your A game all 12 games of the regular season. That's just a reality. It's how you perform when you come out and you're 80%. And, and last year we still had some weird issues in terms of, as Tony said, I mean, or I guess Mark said it. I mean, C.J. Stroud didn't have, had no career depth to fall back on in that Oregon game. I still really can't explain the Michigan game and the cold and the snow. I have a hard time really calling it a lot of snow, but the snow in that situation. I mean, Nebraska was a weird situation. You just can't get it every single week. But the problem Ohio State had was that the defense was inconsistent on some weeks too. If Ohio State's defense was 5 points a game better, we might be talking about a lot of different things at that point. So I don't get too caught up in that. I mean, it's an interesting question or an interesting comment, but you're just not going to be able to bring it week to week.
I watched those Alabama games against Auburn and LSU, and the Auburn game, even the scores puffed up because they went to overtime at 10-10. They had a 10-3 game with like 50 seconds left. They had a field goal on the board. If Auburn doesn't run the ball out of bounds, Tank Bigsby runs the ball out of bounds with whatever it was, a minute, and Alabama's not playing in the national championship game. They are not winning that game against a 6-7 Auburn team, and they would have held Alabama to 3 points. So, yeah, but Bama put it on in the last 50 seconds and made a remarkable touchdown to send it to overtime and got the job done after that. And had one of their worst offensive line / running game performances, I will say the worst in the Nick Saban era. That's the worst their offensive lines played and the least productive running game that's usually just a juggernaut on the ground. And they didn't have it last year, and we'll see if they can improve it this year.